Hashem, the Daf Yomi for Zevachim Kuf Gimel 103. So we start with the Mishnah on the top of Kuf Gimel Amud Aleph. And the Mishnah is discussing the hide or the skin of the animals. So the skins of the animals are never brought on the altar. Sometimes they're burnt outside of the courtyard. So what do? You skin the hide, and the flesh is offered as an olah, or it's eaten by the chatas, the asham, and the shlamim. And except for the chatas and the srafos, those are burned outside the camp in the Beis Hadeshin. So those are burned outside the courtyard. So our Mishnah is going to explain what's the law of the skin that's the hide, that skins, that there are certain circumstances where the Kohanim merit to get the skin of the olah, and there are sometimes where they don't get it. So that's what our Mishnah is going to discuss. So it says in our Mishnah, Kol shelo zacham mizbeach b'bsara, anything where the altar won't get the flesh, won't get the meat. So for example, with disqualification happens before the sprinkling. So never had a shot heter for the altar. Then the Kohanim don't get the hide. And Rashi says the Gemara is going to learn this out from a pasuk. Shenemar olas ish, which means to say, it says in the pasuk, Hakohen makrives olas ish, the olah of a man, means the olah she'olso ish, an olah that a man is going, that the carbon went up for a man. Olah she'olso ish, that it went up on the altar for a man, that the altar consecrated it. But only then does the Kohen get the skin. But olah shenishchata shelo lishma, let's say there was an olah that was slaughtered shelo lishma, with the wrong intent. Afal pi shelo alto abalim, even though the owners do not get a ritzoy, that it's not a kapara for them, as we learned. Ora l'kohanim, the ora goes to the kohanim. Everything okay, Jeff? Oh well, sorry about that. It was kind of done, and we had cleaned it out. But no, we had to clean it out. Eventually, we have to make a new soup. So, Ola. So we're in the top of 103a in the Mishnah. So we say, so we said an Ola that was brought shelo lishma. Then, even though it doesn't provide a kapara for the owners, oral kohanim, the kohanim get it. The kohanim get the skin, the hide. Echad olasa ish, v'echad olasa isha, oraselin kohanim. So whether it's the olah of a man or the olah of a woman, the hide goes to the kohanim. Meaning to say, the pasuk which says olas ish doesn't come to limit and exclude a woman. And the Gemara is going to explain the reason for this. And then it says oras kachim kalim labalim. The kachim kalam, let's say a shlamim. So the skin of the kachim kalam, the owner gets that. Oris kache kachim, but the skin of the kache kachim, i.e. the chatas, the asham, that goes to the kohanim. And the Gemara says kal v'chomer. We say a kal v'chomer. Umayim olah shlo zachu b'vsara, just like an olah where the kohanim don't get the meat, the altar gets it. Zachu ba'ora, they get the hide. Kache kachim, the chatas and the asham, shezachu b'vsarahan, where they do get the meat, the Kohen gets the meat. Eino din sheyizku ba'oran. So for sure they're going to get the skin in that case. The ein mizbeach yochiach, and don't try to break this kal b'chomer by saying that the altar will disprove that, because the altar gets the emurim of the karbanos, but it doesn't get the skin, and so too the kohanim should get the meat, but not the skin. Shein lo or b'chol makom, because the skin, as we said, never goes up on the altar. The hide, I keep trying to say skin, but it's really the hide or whatever it's called, that never goes on the altar. Remember, the only time it's burned is when it's burnt on the Beis Hadeshin. So then it's unusual to see such like a language in a Mishnah, kal v'chomer this, but don't say that. But anyway, that's the language of our Mishnah. So Tana Rabbanan, so the Gemara begins with a brayta, which again we're discussing the pasuk, which says "Vakohen makrives olas ish," the Kohen who brings the olah of the man, or olah sheri krivla kohen lo yeh. The the skin or the hide of the olah goes to the kohen. So Tanur Banan olas ish prat olas hektish. This teaches us that the kohanim don't, that it comes to exclude the olah of hektish. We'll see what that means. The Gemara is going to explain what that means. The olah of hektish does not go to the kohen. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda Omer prat olas gerim comes to exclude the olah of gerim. Typically translated as converts. So now the Gemara is going to explain what does it mean prat olas hektish, and then it's going to explain prat olas gerim, and it's going to take a while, and it's going to be 3 explanations of what prat olas hektish is, and then explanation of prat olas gerim. I think 3. So the Gemara says, okay, what does this mean? My prat olas hektish, first approach. What does this mean when Rabbi Yehuda says prat olas hektish? When it says olas ish, comes to exclude the olah of hektish. So it says Zevachim bar Yosef, prat olah haba min hamosaros. We just had this term of mosaros. Mosaros is where a carbon couldn't be brought. If it would be a chatos, that one of the reasons it can't be brought, those chatos die. But if it would be remember those are the 5 chatos that go to die. And the way to remember them is Timna. That's the mnemonic. So Chatas Tamura, Chatas, whatever. We'll go through all of them. But the equivalent cases on the Ashamos, So Rashi gives us all of them. In Ashama and Asham, it doesn't die. It goes to be grazing until it can be redeemed. And the cases are the Tamuras Asham, the Asham Shemesu Balav, Asham that was exchanged, or its owner died, or that its owner achieved atonement by another carbon. Now we say that they graze, and then they're sold, and you make their offering as an adava. So it's called, and that offering that's brought is called an olas ketzam mizbeach. It's not olas ish, but it's an ola nedavas tzibor. Rashi says, and so that's what it comes to explain. When do the kohanim? When the Kohanim get the olah, when it's the olah of an ish, but not when it's the olah of a tzibor, which is the case by these mosaros. It doesn't say what happens to that olah, but that high, but presumably maybe it goes to the base of mikdash. So the Gemara says, "Hani cholamanda amar mosaros unadavos tzibor azli." Okay, but that's a dispute. What do we do with these mosaros animals? It's only good according to the opinion that says that the extra animals are brought as a carbon, as an olas tzibor, but not everyone says that. El amanda amar mosaros unadavos yachid azli. But according to the position who says that the owner of the asham goes and he himself brings an olah with its value, and he does, and it's his carbon, and he brings in the sachim and he does a smicha on it. So according to them, according to that opinion, what is the olas ish in the verse coming to exclude? So according to that approach, Michael Meimer, so the Gemara says Keda Amar Rava. So this goes according to the position of Rava, who says in Gemara Yoma, it says Va'eshal Mizbeach Varecha Ha'olah, and the pasuk doesn't say Varecha Ha'olah, but Ha'olah. So it's teaching us that Olah Rishona, the first Olah that's mentioned in that day, which is the Olas Tamid. So therefore, you're not allowed to bring any carbon before the Olas Tamid. And Hachinami Ha'olah, so too here also it says Ish or Ha'olah. So that's telling us Ha'olah, Olah Rishona. So it's teaching us here that the first Olah that was separated from an Olah, meaning to say, just a carbon that was separated itself for the purpose of an olah, and not an olah that comes from the mosaros. Only such a carbon do you get to hide from. That was originally separated for an olah, not the one that comes from the extra asham that was left around. So here we don't know what happens to these hides. It doesn't say what happens to them exactly. But okay, go on. So the Gemara says, Amar, next approach. So again, what's we said olas ish comes to exclude olas hektish. What's olas hektish? First approach, which is the approach of Rabbi Chia bar Yosef. It's coming to exclude the olah of mosaros, an extra asham that needed to graze, and you take its money and use it for an olah. Second approach, Amar Rabbi Aibu says, Amar Rabbi Yanai, prat lematfis olah bedek habayis. Let's say, what are we talking about? So when it says to exclude the olah of a hektish, so let's say somebody says I'm taking the value of my olah for the bedek habayis, for the upkeep of the temple. So under those circumstances, the hide, the Kohen does not get the value of the hide. So somebody takes his animal and he says, I'm bringing the olah for the bedek habayis. I'm not bringing it as a carbon, but I'm bringing it for the bedek habayis. So then he doesn't get the hide. And it's not only according to the opinion that this law goes according to one who says that kache bedek habayis, that let's say you consecrate an olah and you use the language for the bedek habayis, that biblically speaking, it gets that you're not supposed to use that language, but you use that language. So there's an opinion that says, biblically speaking, it takes on the value of the bedek habayis, meaning it goes to the upkeep of the temple. And so therefore, it's not the olas ish at all, it's the olah of hektish. For sure, the Kohanim don't get the hide there. Even according to the position that says that if you use such language, I'm being matris my olah for the bedek habayis. Even according to that opinion that says that biblically speaking, it doesn't take effect. Hanimili basar, that only applies to the meat. That doesn't get the kedusha of the bedek habayis. But the hide, which is not the money of the altar, toughest. That biblically speaking, that gets the kedusha of the bedek habayis, and the Kohanim don't get it. And so that the Kohanim don't get it. And so that's what the Braisa means. Olas ish, the olah of a man, the hide goes to the Kohanim, but not if the olah was dedicated to the bedek habayis. V'chein Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua, Prat olah haba min ha-moseros. So the Gemara says, we're going to see other Amoraim that say this. So Rav Nachman says in the name of Rabba bar Avua, when it says olas ish, it comes to exclude the olas that comes from the moseros, the ashams that can't be brought. And Amar Rav Huna, come on, Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, you mean to say this teaching of Rav Nachman, the name of Rabbi Avua, goes according to the position of Rabbi Yehuda? But how can you say that? Meaning, say Rabbi Yehuda says olas hektish, and according to that, it means olas baman mosros. But Rabbi Yehuda himself was hadarbe. He himself recanted that position. He didn't say that. The Tanya shisho in a dava. So this goes back to the Mishnah in Shkolim. Remember, we learned that there were 13 shofaros in the temple. A shofar was like what we call a charity box, but it was narrow on top like a shofar, so nobody could stick their hand in and get the money. So there were 13 shofaros, but they would put the money in for hektish, and 6 of them were dedicated to purchase the olah dava, the voluntary olos, meaning to say olah haba min ha-moseros, to purchase the money of an olah that came from the extra money, sheloyu kohanim zochem ba'orah, that the Kohanim do not have the right to get the hide, but they go back and sell that hide for animals to bring on the altar. Divi Rabbi Yehuda and Amol Rabbi Nechemia, Amol Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Nechemia, or some say Rabbi Shimon, says, Im Kain, if that's your approach, that the olah does that comes from the Mosros doesn't go to the Kohanim, bitalto midrasho shal Yehoyada Kohen. You've nullified the teaching of Yehoyada Kohen. Who is Yehoyada? He was the Kohen Gadol in the first temple. He was the Kohen Gadol in the period of Atalia the queen and Yoash the king. And so anyway, you nullify the teaching of Yehoyada. The Tanya Zem Midrash Darash Yehoyada Kohen. Asham who? Asham wa Hashem. Meaning to say that the Asham goes to Hashem and not the Kohen. But we can't, so that the Asham goes to Hashem and not the Kohen. But we can't say that because we know that the Asham goes to the Asham goes to the Kohen. Meaning to say the pasuk implies Asham who? Asham Hashem, which implies that the Asham goes to Hashem. But we know that that's not true because we know that Asham goes to the Kohen because that's what the pasuk says in Kachatas Hashem. It says in Parshas Tzav. So what do we do with this pasuk? So Kol Shaba Mishum Chatos and Mishum Asham Yilakach Bo Olos Habasar L'Shem VaOrol Kohanim. So he made a specific teaching that anything that was originally brought as an Asham and then had to be brought as an Olah will come, the hide goes to the Kohanim. So you're taking the approach that the hide goes to the Bedek HaBayis. We just said that and that's not the case, because Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Nachman said if you'd say that, you're nullifying the teaching of Yoyada the Kohen. So Rav Nachman responded to Rav Hamnuna. We can remember this. This was an approach of Rav Nachman, and that he's saying to exclude the oil that comes from the Mosaros, and he responds by saying, so if that's the case, what do you say means olas hektish? What do you say? I said it means, we've seen two approaches. One is to exclude ola mosros, and the other is to say exclude ola that was dedicated to the Bedek Habayis. So what do you say? Amarway mukminaway b'maktish nechasa. He says, I am saying that it refers to somebody who says he's giving all of his nechasim. He says, I'm giving all my property to the temple. Rabbi Yoshua, the Tanan. Rabbi Yoshua said, and this was also the Mishnah in Shkolim, Hamakdish nechas. If somebody says, I'm giving all my money to the temple for Bedek Habayis, for the upkeep of the temple. So we said, if somebody says, I'm giving all my money to the temple, what do you do with his assets? He's got a lot of different stuff. So how do we divide it up? He has animals that could go on the altar. So Zecharim and Akevos. So what do you do with them? You use them appropriately. Rebbe Lazar, Omer has Charim, Yimachro Tzarchei Olos. So the male offerings you sell to people you use for people who want to bring a carbon olah. So they give the money to the temple, and the temple gives them that animal as an olah. The female ones go for people who want to bring a shlamim. And the money is used, and then they take the extra money for the Bedek Habayis. Whereas Rabbi Yoshua said, and this is how Rav Hamnuna understands it. What does it mean? Rabbi Yeshua means the Charim Atzmam Yikravu Olos Unekevos Yimachru Etzarchei Shlamim V'Yavi B'Dmein Olos Ushar Nechasim Yipulu Bedek Habayis. So Rabbi Yeshua says no. That even if he just says I'm giving all my money and he doesn't say to what it's going, he meant we understand his intent was that it should be dedicated to the altar, and whatever is not consecrated for the altar will go for the Bedek Habayis. So the males themselves are brought as olos, the females are brought as shlamim, and then you bring with their money olos. You bring meaning to say the females are sold as shlamim, and then you bring with their money olos. Ushar nechasim yipul Bedek Habayis. And all the other assets go to the Bedek Habayis. And now, Vafil Rabbi Yeshua, the Amar Adam Choleg Hektisho, even according to Rabbi Yeshua, who says that a person intends everything that's for the altar to go to the altar, Hani Mili Bebasar, or Tafit. But the hide, the meat is what he intends to go for the carbon. But for sure, he intended that the hide would go for the Bedek Habayis. And so therefore, that hide is not what the Kohanim get. That hide goes to the upkeep of the temple. So we've seen three approaches. What is Olas Hektish? Either it means Olas Ish to exclude Olas Hektish, either that to exclude the case of a person who is Moseros, or it excludes the case of Matfis Lebedek Habayis, or somebody who's Makdish Kol Nechasa. So Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda now explains, the Gemara said, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says, Olas Ish comes to exclude Olas Gerim. So what does that mean? Rav Simar Bar Chelkai or Avina Atu Ger Lav Ishu. What do you mean? Why is it excluding a convert? Is a convert not a man? It says Olas Ish. The Kohen gets the hide of an Olas Ish, but a convert's not a man. So Gemara says, yes, Amarway is excluding Prat Leger Shemes Ve'en Yorshim. It's coming to exclude a convert who dies and he has no heirs. So that means his asset, everybody else has, every other Jew has an heir because they have a distant relative. But a convert has no heirs. So a convert has no heirs. So because assets are hefker. So we see from here, so his Olah is an Olah that has no owners. Let's say he separated an Olah and then he died. So what do you do with the hide? So that doesn't go to the Kohanim, that goes to the temple. What? As opposed to what? I mean, yeah, that's yeah, they're not. What? Okay, so the Gemara says, Tana Rabbanan, Olas ish. I'm not trying to minimize your question. It's a very serious question, but their assumption is that it's somebody who's actual biological relative. So the Gemara says Tana Rabbanan. So let's go on to this pasuk of Olas ish. Rabbanan Olas ish. Enli Olas ish. How do we know that the Kohanim get the Olas ish? Olas gerim nashim avodim minayin. How do we know that if it's the Olah of a convert, a woman, or a slave, that the Kohen does not get it? Or Olah riba. It says or ha'olah, so it's coming to say that the Kohanim also get the hide of those sacrifices. Im kain, if that's the case, mata or olas ish. So why does it say olas ish? Means olah she'altala ish. An olah that was good for a man, meaning say it was the kapara for him. Prato shenishchata chutz lizmana v'chutz l'mkoma shelo yeh kohanim zakayin b'ora. So if it was slaughtered with the improper thought, beyond the proper time, beyond the proper place, the kohanim don't get the hide. It seems only fair if the kohen messed it up the improper time, then he shouldn't get the hide. Yachol shani marbesh nishchata shelo ishma. Oh, let's say I might think to include a case where the owner does not get a domen because it was slaughtered with the wrong intent, so he doesn't get it doesn't fulfill its purpose. I might think lo you kohanim zakain be'ora. I might think the kohanim do not merit the hide under those circumstances. Talmud Lomer or hola mikol makom says or hola, they get it. So the Gemara says, let's go on with this phrase, or Allah, Eli Ella, or Allah, Oros Kache Kache Minayin. I might think that the Kohen only gets the or of the Olah. How do I know that the Kohen also gets the hide of the Kache Kachim, i.e. the Chatas and the Ashim, Tamalomer, or Ha'olah. So it says in the Pasuk, or Allah, Asher He Kriv. And it says Asheri Kriv includes even the Kachim Kachim. Yochol Shani Marbe Av Kachim Kalam. I might think to include even the Kachim Kalam, i.e. the Shlamim. Tamomer Olah. Ma'olah Kachim Kachim Av Kol Kachim Kachim. Only Kachim Kachim. Rabbi Shmuel says he learned this out not from a pasuk but from a Kavachomer. Rabbi Shmuel Omer or Olah Eli Ella Ha Olah Oros Kachim Kachim Minayin. How do I know he also gets the hides of the Chatas and the Ashim? Vidinu, it's a logical argument. Ma ola shelo zacha b'bsara zachu ba'ora, just like an ola where he did not get the meat, but yet the Kohen still gets the hide. Kachim kachim shezachu b'bsara, chatas and achim where he gets the meat. Eino din shezachu ba'orim, for sure he should get the hide. And the Gemara says, no, you can't bring that kavachomer. Mizbeach yochiach. Mizbeach disproves that. The altar disproves it. Shezacha b'bsara. The altar gets the meat by the ola. But doesn't get the hide. So Rabbi Shmuel responds, the altar is different. The altar never gets the hide. Tomar b'kohanim shezachu b'miktas. Well, you say that by the kohanim that do get it sometimes by the olah. So since there is a carbon, i.e. the olah, where they get the hide, so therefore they also get it by the chatas and the asham. Rabbi says, Rabbi Omar Ko Atzmo Rachnu El Ora Ola Bovad. The pasuk only needs to teach us about the hide of the Ola. We don't need any law by the other kachim because Shebekoma Koma Or Maholech Achar Basar. Wherever the meat goes, that's where the hide goes. It's only by the Ola that we need it, but not by any other place. Parm HaMisrafim Usir HaMisrafim, the bulls and the goats that are burnt. Hein Vorosein Misrafim Imayin. The meat and the hides are burnt with them. So the chatas and the asham and the communal shlamim, the hide becomes a gift to the kohen. I mean, the kohen gets to eat it. So therefore, ratzu mafshitinosan, ratzu ochonosan al gabi oren. If they want, they could skin the animals and have the hide, or else the kohanim could eat it on the hide. Meaning to say, they're not required, but they can do whatever they want with the hide. Kachim kalim, but the shlamim, the lesser sacred offerings, labalim. The meat goes to the owners. Ratzu mafshitinosan, ratzu ochonosan gabi oren. They can do whatever they want with the hide. Aval ola, the ola is the only exception. It says about the ola, you should skin it. You have to skin it and then you chop it up. So I might have thought that since they don't get the meat, they don't get the hide. So the Kohen gets the hide. So then Rebbe continues to darshan this pasuk. Lo yiyeh prat l'tful yom u'mechusar kippurim. What do we mean when we say that the Kohen gets it? Lo yiyeh. This comes to exclude a case of tevul yom and mechusar kippurim and an onin. So those cases, sheyachol, I might think sheyachol lo yisku b'basar shehu achila. But Yisku Ba'or She'enu Achil. I might think that these three examples of the Tvul Yom, who's immersed in the mikvah, and at night he's tar, and the Mechusar Kippurim, who still has to bring a carbon, or the Onain, who's only an Onain during the day, as we discussed. I might think that, okay, he can't eat the meat, so therefore he doesn't get a portion of the meat. But the hide, which is not for eating, I might think he gets the valuable hide. Tamalomer lo yiyeh. Only the Kohen who's zoched, only that Kohen who is able to do the hakrava, the bringing, gets the olah. Pratum chutzer kippurim tvul yom va'onei. They don't get it. The Tanakama. So the Gemara says, let's go back to the Tanakama, who says that how do we know? Who learned it all out from the psukim that the Kohen gets the olah and the chatas asham hide and the shalmei tzibor hide, but he learned that from psukim. Why doesn't he learn that also from this kal v'chomer? Nami tepekle medina. He should also have learned it out from a kal v'chomer. The Gemara says, "The milsa da'atzi b'kal v'chomer tarf v'kasav l'krai." Said, yeah, you could learn that from a kal v'chomer, but sometimes the Torah, takes the effort to write out what it could have also learned out from a kal v'chomer. Rabbi Shmuel, Hay Asheri Kriv, and Rabbi Shmuel, what is he? Hay Asheri Kriv, that the Tanakhama learns that the Oris Kachim goes to Kohanim. What does Rabbi Shmuel learn that from a kal v'chomer? What does he do with those words? My Abed way. He says, I use it. He says, I use it to exclude a Tvul Yom, a Mechusar Kippurim, and an Onein. He says that they don't get a portion of the hide because since they're not able to bring it. So the Gemara says, but typically, why does he learn out from lo yiyeh, like Rebbe learned it out? The Gemara says, no. Rabbi Shmuel Tamei, the Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishur Rabbi Shmuel, never ba'olah lo yiyeh, but never ba'asham lo yiyeh. Mal'alan atzmosav mutarin. So Rabbi Shmuel doesn't want to learn that from lo yiyeh because he learned it out something else from the word lo yiyeh, because it says by the olah he gets it, and it says by the asham lo yiyeh. Mal'alan, just like by the asham, it's to teach us that the atzmosav mutarin. That the bones are going to be permitted, that the Kohanim, as we saw earlier, can even use those bones to make utensils. Afkan, also by the Ola Atzmos of Mitarin, that the Kohanim can use those bones that don't have any meat in them to use them to make utensils. And Mufni, and this verse is extra, because if it's not extra, you can't make the Gzera Shava. The Mufni, because if it wouldn't be completely extra, equal Mifrach, you could break the Gzera Shava by saying Mal Hashem Shekem B'Sar Mutter. Don't learn out from an Hashem to an Olah, because by an Hashem the meat is permitted. So therefore, well, yeah, Kra Yisero. It's an extra verse, and to teach us that idea. So the Gemara is actually a very logical, easy flow Gemara. And so now we come up to the next Mishnah. But anyway, just to summarize what that Gemara said, that the hide goes to the Kohen, except for Oros Karchim. We saw three possibilities. That's the Moseros, or was what was given for Bedek Habayis, or even according to Rabbi Yeshua, the Nechasim. But or was the Oros what? Learned it out from Olas Ish, right? But the other approach is Olas Ish and not Olas Gerim. Because in the case there where he has no heirs, the Kohanim don't get it. Now we're up to the next Mishnah. So since we just learned in the earlier Mishnah that all the Kachim, the hides go to the Kohanim, our Mishnah is telling us that that's only by those Karbanos that didn't have a disqualification before the skinning. Kol HaKachim, Shira B'hem Psul, Kodem Lev Shaitan. All the Kachim that a disqualification happened to them prior to the skinning, the Kohanim do not get the hides because that carbon has to be burnt with its skin, and we don't we don't skin it. But if the disqualification happened after the skinning, or Kohanim, the Kohanim get it. I'm Rabbi Chanina, Skan Kohanim, Rabbi Chanina, who was the deputy Kohen, he was in charge of, like, I saw an earlier, he was in charge of running the day-to-day of the temple. That's why he got this role, Skan Kohanim. Miyamai lo ra'iti or sheyotze lebeis hasreifa. In all my days, I never saw it. Because we only saw the disqualification only after it was skinned, meaning to say it never happened. Kohanim made sure of that, right? So it's a very valuable thing. I'm Rabbi Akiva midvarav lamanu. From here, we learn from Rabbi Chanina Skan Kohanim's words. We learn shamavshid es habachor. Let's say you skin the firstborn animal, v'nimtza treifa, and then you find it's a treifa. Sha'af ye'uso kohanim ba'oro. That even though the animal has to be burned, they can benefit from the hide, because even though the psul happened before it was skinned, nevertheless the psul was only recognized after it was skinned. B'chamim omrim. Ein lo ra'inu raya. No, this is ela yetze lebeis hasreifa. No, the fact that Rabbi Chanina Skan Kohanim never saw this is not a proof, but rather it should go out to be burnt. So this is the first siman in all of Yoredeya. And the argument from silence is not an argument. The argument from silence. Is the argument from silence an argument or not? And it says, Lo ra'inu eino raya, the first siman in Shulchan Aruch, I haven't reviewed this in a while, but whether or not a woman could be a shochet, and the first siman in Yoredeya, maybe I'll make the Shulchan Aruch says a woman, it could be a shochet. And then I need the Yoredeya in front of me. I'm going to mess it up. I wasn't prepared. But I think the Ramah says there, and we never saw this. We never saw this. We never in our lives saw it. We never saw a woman who was a shochet. And so then I think it's the Shach who says, Lo ra'inu eino raya. The fact that we never saw it is not a proof. And that's what's going on. I mean, don't take my word on that. You have to check, but that's what I believe the different opinions are. So lo ra'inu eino raya, and that comes from here. The Chachamim say ein lo ra'inu raya. They use the language a little bit differently, but that's the basic point. The fact that you haven't seen anything yet is not a proof. It's a very deep idea also, but the argument from silence is not an argument. So now the Gemara says. It's the same. That's the way of saying it. Lack of evidence. Now, is that what they taught you in law school? What? He's finally waiting. He's waiting his whole life to drop a phrase from the law school class, from the law school class. So anyway, so the Gemara explains who is the Tana of our Mishnah and the Tana earlier. That and we're going to have a dispute later on, a dispute between Rebbe and Rebbe Elazar and Rebbe Shimon, where they skinned the ore of the carbon and then they lost the meat or was burnt before they sprinkled the blood. And so then the sprinkling of the blood is b'di'evid. Does it atone? So under those circumstances, do you get to use the hide? So the Gemara says we learned earlier, kol shelo zacham mizbech b'bsara lo zachal kohan b'bsara. What we learned earlier, whoever does not any mizbeach which doesn't get the meat, the kohanim do not get the flesh. The af agav the ifshetela or kodem zrikat, and it implies even if the hide was skinned prior to the sprinkling. And money. Who is this like? Rebbe Elazar, Rebbe Shimon. This is the position of Rebbe Elazar, Rebbe Shimon. The Amar Eina Damaratza or B'fnei Atzmo, who says that the blood, if it's just by itself without the meat, does not atone does not allow for the hide to be given to the Kohanim. But Ema Seifa, but the next clause of our Mishnah says, Kol Kachim Shir Ben Psul Kodem Efshaten Eino Rasal Kohanim Achar Efshaten or Rasal Kohanim. Well, that follows the position of Rebbe Damaratza or B'fnei Atzmo. So that even if there's just the blood, that it is maratza for the or. So Reish Rebbe Elazar and Rebbe Shimon and Seifa Rebbe, it can't be. So the Gemara says, Okay, so anyway, we're going to bring this up, but you know what? We'll stop here. And this, let me just go to the schedule. We're going to review this daf, Baruch Hashem, at 7:45 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then we'll do the daf Yomi for Shabbos Kodesh on Friday at 12. Shikoyach to everybody. And in